What is up, Xbox and PC fans? It is Josh back once again, bringing you guys a plethora of news today. I'm talking about there's just all kinds of stuff happening out there. Hardware, software-wise, GPU market, Xbox console market. There is news all over today, so let's get into it. First of all, obviously, tomorrow is the release date. If you guys have been following my channel at all, you know this, for the AMD RX 480 and the other family members of the RX 400 series from AMD, the RX 470 and 460. But they are highly anticipated cards, GPUs, and they should be out tomorrow. Within a couple of hours here, we should know exactly how these cards perform. But rumors circulating that these cards are pretty freaking fast, especially for the money. $199 AMD RX 480 with 4GB of VRAM and a 229 variant that has 8GB of VRAM. Should be about as fast as a GTX 980 and faster than an AMD R9 390X and even supposedly faster than an AMD Fury, the non-X variant, for $199. So looking to be a very, very good value. They are going to be not only VR capable, but VR ready. These things are testing in the high 6s, low 7s in Valve's Steam VR test. So these cards are going to be certified and ready to use on Oculus Rift, on the HTC Vive, etc. But yeah, for $199 to $229, these cards are priced very, very competitively, and they have adequate VRAM to be able to push higher resolutions such as 1440p and even 4K at lower settings. Obviously, they don't have quite the computing power at just under 6 T-flops to be able to really push 4K with, ultra high settings. But still, if you wanted to run that resolution or even 1440p, in my experience, the vast majority of those games do require over 3GB of VRAM, which is going to be problematic for the GTX 1060 in my opinion. It's coming in two variants, a 3GB variant and a 6GB variant. Prices are still, as of yet, unknown, but theoretically these cards will come in about $300, maybe $329, depending on the size of the VRAM, 3 or 6GB. And obviously, if there's any add-in board partners, they may be at least somewhat more because of additional cooling measures, etc. So this card basically is going to pick up the lower end of the GTX 10 series at this time, and Nvidia, because of all this AMD hype, have actually pushed the release of this card forward by a month or two. This card, originally slated to launch sometime in August or September, is now going to launch in late July to try and counter some of this momentum that AMD has gained even before the launch of the AMD RX series of cards at a very, very, very good price point for the performance. So hopefully for Nvidia it'll be marginally faster than the RX 480 from AMD and be able to justify that slightly higher price point. I had a guy on my channel recently that made some valid points about a lot of things Nvidia and AMD were doing, and he mentioned that a lot of times AMD will put extra memory, extra VRAM in its cards just as kind of a marketing gimmick, but I really honestly do not see that being the case here at all. 3GB of VRAM, in my personal opinion, for a quote-unquote next-generation GPU that's $300 is inexcusable in my opinion. Now I realize that these constraints are largely due to the bus being 192 bits because it's a cut-down variant of the same GPU, more than likely. However, again, even to run 1440p with moderate settings, you're going to hit your head on the ceiling, so to speak, of that VRAM that's available on that card. So, me personally, I would either get the RX 480 without even knowing the other specs and performance of this card with the 4GB for $199 and save $120-$130 versus a GTX 1060 that might get me marginally better performance in 1080p, but I won't be able to push anything over that because I don't have adequate VRAM, at least in the 3GB variant. Now, 6GB of VRAM, which I currently have my 980 Ti right now, is adequate, but to be completely truthful with you guys, I hit my head on that occasionally in terms of being able to push higher resolution textures, higher resolutions on the frame buffer, just in general. Certain effects like anti-aliasing take a lot of memory up, and you know, not everyone has to play their games at 120 frames per second. Some people choose graphics over frame rate, and if you're one of those people, you're kind of left out in the dark with the GTX 1060, even in the higher end variant. So yet to be seen how this card will perform, but hopefully it's able to offer some value to consumers and get AMD a little bit of competition in that lower end price range, because that is where, you know, 9 out of 10 customers who are buying GPUs are spending their money $300 and under, and a lot of them are buying $100 to $200. They're buying these GPUs. So AMD is going to have that market completely cornered off here, it appears, and they are going to get back a ton of market share from Nvidia in the PC space. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Nvidia has with that GTX 1060, but I'm telling you guys right now, in my personal opinion, the VRAM on those boards is not adequate. Performance, hopefully at 1080p, may be very, very good for somebody who's doing a lot of high FPS 1080p gaming, such as competitive gaming, etc. But my personal opinion is I'd go with the RX 480 or try and get up there to the GTX 1070 if it were me. Moving on here, it appears that both Battlefield 1 and Gears of War 4 will really try to push the current generation consoles that have AMD GPUs in them by utilizing DirectX 12 and asynchronous compute. Now, asynchronous compute basically, guys, is the same thing, or a metaphor for it would be if you had a straw and you're soaking up soda pop, and in that straw are little bubbles, and it's not all soda. Well, that's what we currently have with our GPUs. We have a lot of bubbles in our GPUs that are just wasted GPU time. So the line is not completely full. There are gaps that could potentially be filled up with other instructions that are not filled up with instructions right now because of the inefficiencies in DX11 and other APIs. But DirectX 12 is going to enable this asynchronous compute and be able to fill up those pipelines a lot more effectively and just provide further performance, highly optimized performance on the consoles that are currently out, the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, that have specific hardware built into them in these asynchronous compute engines that schedule these additional tasks. And Nvidia does not have these hardware-based decoders to schedule this information, but they have highly optimized the entire pipeline in DX11 and DX12. So we'll have to see if they are able to close the gap with AMD and DirectX 12. It's becoming a lot more prevalent, and I plan to do a video on this in the near future about DirectX 12 versus 11 and other APIs such as Vulkan that are coming down the pipeline and going to use asynchronous compute. How will those two things affect performance moving forward on next generation AMD and Nvidia cards is yet to be seen. But again, Battlefield 1 and Gears of War 4 will both utilize DirectX 12. I can guarantee you this, those are both two showcase titles for those graphics engines in Frostbite 3 and in Unreal Engine 4. And if those two games, which are again showcase titles for those engines, are moving to DirectX 12, you can bet your ass the next bunch of games with both of those engines will be supporting DX12 as well. So how that impact performance, we'll find out next time. But moving on to more of the news here. Halo 5 Warzone Firefight. This baby was out in beta. I had a phenomenal time with it when it was in beta form. But this essentially brings together the best parts of Firefight and the best parts of Warzone for an all-out absolute mayhem fest on the Xbox One, and also rumored that we have Halo 6 in production for the PC and the Xbox One. Now that has no release date obviously, but I'm guessing sometime right around November like they always do for Halo. And Halo 5 Warzone Firefight actually arrives tomorrow, Wednesday, on the Xbox One. So I'm looking forward to that. I cannot wait. So, and some not so good news here. We have a couple of items. The guys over at Rocksteady Studios, I don't know what kind of crack these guys have been smoking. They let somebody else handle the PC port of Arkham Knight, and they totally screwed that game up. The game is still completely screwed up. It will never be fixed. And they had a horrible experience with that release, had to take the game back and not sell it anymore, and do some other things to try and get in customers' good graces, but they just have not been able to rebound. And they recently announced the Batman Arkham Asylum Collection, It was supposed to release here on the 26th of July, and these guys have come out and basically said that after reviewing the project, we found the quality is absolute crap, and we are going to delay this inevitably. So they had given absolutely no date to release this series of games for Xbox One, PS4, or PC, and I'll be honest with you guys, I hope they don't release it, because it's probably going to be completely jacked up, and if these guys do it to me again, I'm not going to buy any more Batman games from these guys, which is a shame, because I love those games. Hopefully they get it right and they get it out eventually. In other news, Ninja Gaiden appears to be back in some form. Hopefully we'll get some more news on this next month, as the developer says he can't reveal anything just yet, but next month he'll have more details. I love that game on Xbox, on the OG Xbox, the first Xbox One, and if they make a remaster of that, that would be amazing. So we'll find out next month, but I'd love to see what that's going to turn into, so fingers crossed on that one. Obviously, RX 480, again, pending release tomorrow. Numbers have leaked, alleged benchmarks, which I will put up here for you guys, but I would take a grain of salt with these until we have some actual news tomorrow when the NDA is lifted and the real numbers are released. Take these for what you will in the meantime. And with the recent release of Doom, Bethesda Software is back at it, with id Software being the developer here for another Quake game. They just knocked it out of the park here recently with Doom, and after years and years of having no Quake, people go to QuakeCon every year and they play old school Quake 3 Arena, which I love that game. They have not had a game in super long, but apparently id Software back at it again, making Quake Champions. This game is said to be a first-person shooter in the purest form of arena shooters, and they are targeting the PC as their primary platform with 120 Hz refresh rate plus. They're supposed to be doing this for competitive gaming, tournament gaming, and they want this to be the ultimate MLG game for the next 10 years. And honestly guys, if they can do this game like they did Doom, it should be an absolute smash out of the park. So I'm looking forward to this game. I will have some interviews up on this soon. Look forward to that on the channel. You guys know I do play a lot of Star Wars here. I do play some Star Wars Let's Plays occasionally and have some footage back there in my videos. So I'm looking forward to the Death Star DLC. I have been since they named that, and it's currently no actual date, but apparently they will be releasing this sometime around July 4th. So I hope the 4th is with me. I hope the 4th is with you. And I'm looking forward to getting some Force right around the Death Star, right around that time. So I can't wait for it. So hope you guys have had a good run so far this week, and a lot more news coming obviously. Starting 9 a.m. tomorrow, I will try and get footage up of reliable information on the RX 480 in terms of benchmarking, overclocking, heat, power consumption, etc. So we'll know more about that very soon. In the meantime, guys, hope you guys can enjoy some games. I know I'm going to. Sleep well, and I'll see you mañana. See ya.